No, I felt that it's nice, it would be nice to be able to love him, but I didn't. I thought to myself as a child, well, if this is religion, I don't want any part of it. I don't think it's especially, I think they would send it to any jerk that retires. Words were always, I always loved words, always. Mike, I met, unfortunately. I'm no great Jew. I'll never know what he wanted to say because I took up all the time talking myself.
And the last thing, I think, no, it's two more things. One is your 80th birthday party. Tell me about it, but not that I've asked. I'm gonna edit out all what I'm saying now. So start from scratch and tell me about it. Say something, lead into it somehow if you can.
Well, I guess that's one of the highlights of my life in a way because I never had a wedding. I still intend to go back to school, take up something, because I'd like to continue learning just anything, because I think a person has to grow. Sam, you made the pants too long. I'll never know why I called it that, but that was the name of the figure for me. Sam, you made the pants too long. I guess it's a form of protest. 83, that's all I need is a boyfriend now. Oh, that's a... Stop it, Pee-wee. I've forgotten the punchline. Was there one?
Well, you tell the story and we'll figure out.
The end of it was I just refused him and that's it. Was there a punchline?
You found out he was married.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, well, I met him on the bus.
The most important part.
Oh, yes, yeah, I forgot about that
He
because
wanted to try his luck.
he lives in the neighborhood,
He's
so...
in Washington Heights.
Yes, of course. So I'm
Can't
on the
trust
bus
those
with
guys.
a friend of mine, and I said, you see that guy there? And he's sitting, and there's a lady sitting next to him. Subsequent to that, I met him many times in the supermarket with the lady on
But
his
he
arm.
never acknowledged you.
Oh, well, yeah, he sort of, like a side look.
But do you live in Washington Heights?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you lived up above.
No, I lived on 186th Street.
April 7th, 1952. Dear Madam, I tip my hat to you and the other storekeepers for stopping this un-American, unhealthy hypocrisy. Thanks again for showing courage in the face of vicious blackmail. Yours, Sherman.
I guess it's the Easter holiday when the Catholics celebrate the rising of Christ again. That the church, the Sacred Heart Church, had made placards saying, they put these placards in the storekeepers' windows, and they told them, they didn't ask them, they told them they wanted them closed that particular day in honor of the death of Christ. And this was the way the placard was worded. And I looked at these, and some of these stores, a great number of them were owned by Jewish storekeepers. And the placard was in the window, and I saw this. My hair stood on end, and I went into the store, and I said to them, "Why do you have that placard in the window? Are you celebrating the death of Christ?" So he said, "No." He said, "But the brothers came in, and they gave me the placard, and they said, they almost threatened that if we didn't put this in the window and keep the store closed, that we would lose the patronage of all the Catholic people in the neighborhood." And there were a great many of them, and therefore they accommodated them. I said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. You mean to say if they had worded it differently and said that we are complying with our neighbors in the neighborhood because we're friendly and we're friends of them, and in respect to their religion we are closing," that's another thing. But to say, be as blatant as that and then to threaten you. So, but they didn't listen to me. I think there was one storekeeper who refused out of all of them. And I was infuriated because they kept these placards in the window. So I called the editor of the New York Times. And he was a Catholic. And when I told him this story, he was infuriated himself. He said, "You're absolutely right. And I'm writing it." And he printed this story on the front page of the New York Times. It was on the bottom, but it was there on the front page. 1910. I remember horses pulling streetcars. Can you imagine that? They stopped very shortly after that, because I also remember automobiles in its beginning stages. You know, when if you saw an automobile, everybody, "Oh my God, we had an uncle that had an automobile." And he was very wealthy, so he came to visit us, and we went out in this Studebaker, and of course the whole neighborhood came out to watch this. Oh, that was an occasion. There was a period of time when they used to call them May walks and June walks. At a certain time in May, when like harvest time, they would have a May walk or a June walk, and all the kids and older people would all get dressed up in costumes of varying kinds. The kids would be ballet dancers, or even the older ones, they'd get dressed up as old-fashioned girl of the 1800s, or they'd be dressed up as, usually the kids like to be angels or queens or princesses. And I used to sit and watch them parade by, and I remember the little girl dressed in the tutu was the thing that got me. I thought, "Oh, this is the most magnificent thing I've ever seen." And at that point, I wanted to be a ballet dancer more than anything else in this world. And that's the way that desire stayed in me until when I was about 11. Then I went to a community center of the school, which was PS 57, which was near there. And I hate to be immodest, but you know that I'm not that modest, so I was really very good. My father was a great tyrant, fanatically religious. I mean, to the point of fanaticism. And I'll tell you that little story about him. This would be a good incident to tell, good time to tell you that little story. He was so fanatic that on Saturday he would go to the synagogue, of course, every Saturday. And this particular Saturday, he never carried any, you're not allowed to carry anything except the, what you call a siddur, which is a book with prayers, in Hebrew. So he carried that and a handkerchief, I guess. And he was walking along, in the synagogue was up near somewhere, I think around Belmont Avenue, Tremont, around there. And coming home from the synagogue after the services were over, it wasn't dark yet. And he walked along and he spied a quarter on the ground. And at that time, a quarter was a bit of money, because In those days, when I was so young, a quart of milk was about 8 cents.
What year is this?
Huh?
What year is this?
Well, I think it was about the year, must have been about 1915, something like that. And so he put his foot on the quarter, and he stayed on that corner, taking out his siddur, his Jewish book, and he read it, read the prayers there. And he stood there until the sun went down, when it was time, when you could handle money, because you're not allowed to handle money on the Sabbath. So then when the sun went down, he took his foot off the quarter, he picked it up, and he came home. And that was the story. And I thought it was pretty funny. This is just a picture of Sarah Teasdale, one of my favorite poets. And this is a poem that I love, and I know it by heart. When I am dead and over me bright April shakes out her rain-drenched hair, you should stand above me broken-hearted. I shall not care, for I shall have peace as leafy trees are peaceful when rain bends down the bough, and I shall be more silent and cold-hearted than you are now.
Wonderful.
That's a poem. It's one of my favorites. Mike's perched himself on my doorstep every single night, and I married him, not for the right reasons, believe me, because I wasn't in love with him, but he was good looking, and that always swayed me, because I have a thing about looks. My daughter will tell you that, because I guess I always thought I was so ugly that when I saw something beautiful, even in a person, if it was a picture, I love beauty in all forms, and he was good looking, and that, I guess I liked that. I knew underneath that I wasn't doing the right thing, but I was 26 and I wanted to get married, and I just got married. And it was disastrous, of course, but I can't say, I can't say my life was miserable, because I'm not the miserable person. I'm not that kind of a person that is miserable. I can always find things to give me pleasure. The people I worked with were great, and I fell in love with a guy who was old enough to be my father. That was the great love of my life, and I won't go into that because it's too painful. And well, what should I say? He was married, had a daughter, and everything was honorable between us, but it was very, I guess I got a lot out of it.
What was his name?
Huh?
What was his name?
Charlie Baroni. This neighborhood is, what should I say? This little conclave that I live in is nice. It's a nice little tree-lined street, and the people on it are congenial and they're nice neighbors. But you walk 2 blocks and you're right in a jungle practically, because the people are. Not that I have nothing against the vendors to being on the streets and trying to make a living, because it's hard for them to make it. So a lot of these people you can shop without going into a store. The crime rate well, I only can go by what I read in the papers, because I don't see crime. I haven't seen it happen right here, but I know that from reading that our particular precinct is one of the worst in the entire country. The precinct has more murders and more drug related crimes than almost any precinct, I think, maybe only would be the 44th precinct, maybe worse. I'm not sure.
And where is that
And
located?
that's in the Bronx, near 161st Street in the Bronx. That's they call that Fort Apache. And I'm not afraid to walk around the neighborhood. I'm vigilant about who's walks in back of me or in front of me, and I'm careful as I could possibly be. Oh God, I was mugged 4 or 5 times, I guess. Let's see. Here, I was mugged, I'm trying to think back. I was going to, my friend Ruth lived at 176th Street at that time on Broadway, and I was going to a mahjong game. Now, we used to play mahjong, and that was the game in her house. And walking along, usually when I walk along, I'm very aware of who's behind me, who's in front of me, because this is not a particularly safe neighborhood. But this time, I was thinking of something, I can't remember what, but my head was not on where I was going, and this man was following me with sneakers, and I walk into her vestibule, and this guy is behind me, and he takes out a curved knife, the kind that you lay linoleum with, you know, where you do that, and he put it to my side, and he said, "You better give me your money." Well, I tell you, I looked up at this guy, and he looked very mild, and he wasn't at all frightening. He was a Hispanic, and I thought to myself, gee, maybe I should take my knee and hit him in the groin, or should I give him the money? I thought, well, it better not take a chance. His hands are liable to move. So I was wearing a diamond ring on my hand, and I didn't know if he saw it, but I opened my bag, dropped the ring into the bag, took out my wallet, and he stood there very calmly, because I could read his face. And I said, all I have is $10. So he said, okay, give it to me. And I took out the $10, gave it to him. He politely turned around and walked out. So I felt very lucky. And I went up to my friend's house, called the police. They came, I reported. That was the end of that. And I went to school, and I was writing this parody. And one of the things we had to do for this teacher is to write a how-to essay. So my how-to was how to write a parody. And this was what I wrote to my what I wrote. I said, when my grandson Evan was 5, I wanted to send him a Valentine that was different, so I wrote a parody to the tune of Frere Jacques, which had these simple lines. Evan Derkacz, please be my Valentine. You can make my tick beat a little quicker. Please be my Valentine. And the response was so tremendous that I was encouraged to continue the practice, and every occasion elicited a parody. So that's what I did for people. Every time there was a birthday, and this is the method I use. First, you decide on a theme, and that is whether it's friendship, love, sympathy, humor, birthday, and so forth. And the second, you pick the tune, and you choose a song that's simple, with a well-defined beat, such as songs by Irving Berlin, or Cole Porter, or Irving Caesar. They're very adaptable. But don't choose a song that like Hoagie Carmichael's Stardust, because the meter is so varied that it makes for complications. And third, you make an outline using the same form that you'd use for any piece of writing. And finally, you keep humming the tune while reviewing in your head what to say. And often the tune and the beat will suggest the words. Try it. And the following is a very simple example that I wrote. And this was a song that you would sing to the tune of Over There, which is an old war song. And this is the way it went. Pick your theme, set the scene, be prepared, don't be scared, keep it clean. Just hum the tune now, and pretty soon now, words and music will say exactly what you mean. Think you're done, you've just begun. Start again and again, it's such fun. And when you're sated, don't be elated, 'cause it might be read by Kevin Pilkington. It does something to me. I guess I get a sense of excitement about it. And so it's important. And I do it, but I do it once a month. I will allow myself to go, and I take a certain limited amount of money. $200 is my limit. And when that's spent, either won or lost, mostly lost, I do it. And that's as far as I'll allow myself and no more. But I do get a great enjoyment out of it. And there are times, of course, I win, you know. If I win $600 at one slot, one pull of the machine, it's a great thrill. Stupid. Very. And when I come home, I used to come home sitting in the bus with this terrible sense of guilt, saying, what's the matter with you? Are you so stupid that you open up a window and throw out $200 and think of what good you could do, the homeless, if they got $200 a month, or kids who are starving. I say that to myself, and then I continue to do this stupid thing because I have to rationalize it too, you know. I say, well, you've worked all your whole life for this money, and some of it should be done for your own enjoyment as well. It's rationalization, I know, but I do it, knowing that I'm doing it and it's wrong, and I do it. I mean, who doesn't do something that's wrong? Stimulates me, and it brings the adrenaline up, and it seems to me it's a substitution for sex. Isn't that what I've said? And yes, I do. In my own mind, I say to myself, why am I so stimulated by this stupid activity? Well, I find it excites me, and after all, I don't get much excitement of that nature, so that's the way I interpret it. Whether it's the right interpretation, that possibly is. And I always felt that one person can make a difference. And the theory, I mean, you speak to people and they would say, so, I'm only one person, I can't do anything. I've heard this time and again from people who have said that to me. And it isn't true, because one person, it's like the saying about lighting a match, you know, you can light up a whole stadium. I think we proved it once in the Lewiston Stadium, if I remember. The Lewiston Stadium, well, you don't know the Lewiston Stadium, but the Lewiston Stadium was a wonderful place in City College. It's a stadium that was part of City College, and was an outdoor stadium where they had the Guggenheim family had paid for symphony concerts, for Gershwin concerts, for all kinds of concerts, and all you paid was something like, if you want to sit up high, you paid a quarter to sit on these seats, or down lower, the most I think you paid was a couple of dollars, if that. You could sit in the seats right near the bandstand. And the students of all kinds used to come there and sit around, and he'd hear the most wonderful music in the outdoors with the sky above. It was just fantastic, just wonderful. But I think once they tried the theory of having everybody light a match in the darkness to see whether it would meet, and it lit up the whole place. I regret, you'll think this is stupid, But it isn't because it would have changed my life. I married Mike because I never felt that I was attractive enough to wait to find somebody that I would love. So here was a good-looking man who wanted to marry me, and I married him. But if I had been smart and done something like changed my nose at the time, it would have made me feel differently about myself. And making me feel differently about myself would have changed my whole attitude as far as finding somebody that I would love, who would love me. And that's the only thing I regret most, is not having a great part of life that is important. Having love, being loved, and loving in return.
What do you look back upon as your greatest achievement?
It's a very hard question to answer. I don't think I've achieved anything great, really. But to me, the most important thing in my life really is my daughter. I love her more than anything, more than even you and Amy. And I'll tell you the truth, I love you both very much, but I love her above everything. This is sing to the tune of When the Red, Red Robin Comes Bob, Bob, bobbing along. I'm not shy, just retiring, no more perspiring. I'll be free, free to pursue my life, free from the stress and strife. I'll be me, no more, no more. Get up at 6, my hand holds all the tricks. I'll get in all my licks, and I'll hear a new drummer. I'll turn on rock and roll, go see La Cage aux Folles, join a club. It all sounds ideal, but what do I really feel? That's the rub. I know I'm gonna miss you all, 'cause I love you short and tall. I'll tell you what's true, that I shy from retiring, but don't mind perspiring with you. That's it.